Hello and welcome to Wasted Plotential, where we discuss the wasted potential of our favourite plotlines. Mortal Kombat Onslaught is in a bit of a slump with its Chronicle stories. While the two repeats in a row could be to allow the team to focus on wrapping up the main story with two chapters released simultaneously, that the main story is over makes it feel like the game, or at least this era of it, is over. So let's close out Mortal May by going over the current selection of Chronicles and discuss what they did well and where they could have improved, or done something completely different. Chronicles are short stories centered on new alts for the cast, set in different timelines from the main story. They are evidently named Chronicles with a K to ruin the search optics of my own far superior MK stories, so let's get revenge by rewriting several of the official Chronicles or something like that, I don't know. I've already covered M1K Scorpion in a dedicated episode, so it won't be covered here. Klassic Kabal is a reimagining of Kabal's departure from the Black Dragon. Rather than having a change of heart, he leaves because Kano sold him and Eren Black out to Shao Kahn. Maybe this was meant to plug the hole in MK11's retcon that raised the question, why would Kabal have been with the heroes to be killed and become a revenant in MK9 if he was always crooked? It's an interesting alternate take, but I would prefer the reassertion of his heroism, especially when they didn't use the 11 design seen in Chapter 4, but instead the original design from MK3. You know, one might expect the classic characters to have very classic stories. My take is that Kabal is already having doubts, especially when Kano is plotting to steal from Khan, his supposed ally who is very dangerous. Eren convinces him to stick around and things proceed as normal up until the finale, after the two have helped the SF to take Kano down. I'm thinking Jax insisted on bringing Kano in alive for interrogation. Eren doesn't care and wants to finish Kano off here as payback. Kabal does too, but he's true to his word, leading to the two turning on each other over morals instead of Eren just selling out Kabal to Frost and fucking him over like Kano did. Maybe Kabal joins the good guys here, or maybe Sonya doesn't believe he was being true to his word and he flees. One thing you'll notice about these classic chronicles is that many of them would work just fine in the main Onslaught timeline with little alteration. M1K Shang Tsung enters an Onslaught adjacent timeline because that timeline's Shang Tsung is out to get him. How an Onslaught Shang learned about other timelines is unclear, but M1K Shang teams up with the good guys to take him down before he can take M1K Shang's soul and become unstoppable. I don't really have much to change since it's just a standalone story that takes advantage of the character having a variant in the game already. Since the writers loved their twist endings around this time, I'd have M1K Shang reveal that he was actually the one hunting the other, the foreigner in this other timeline coming to kill his native counterpart, and having a new timeline version be aware of the multiverse first instead of an old timeline one just makes more sense. Yeah, now you see why I'm doing these in bulk? Klassic Sub-Zero's story sees him learn his brother's fate and team up with him to reveal the truth of the Shiryu massacre to Scorpion, and then the trio defeat Quan Chi. Then the most obvious plot twist ever occurs as Bi-Han reveals he was lying about being corrupted. I've got two ways to go differently with this. One is to embrace the non-canon nature of the story and have Bi-Han be completely honest. The brothers teaming up and being pals with Baraka and Scorpion was wonderful to experience, even with the ever-looming threat of the obvious twist. So let the brothers remain on good terms through to the end. Maybe have them split Bi-Han off from Noob to let Noob's defeat represent the final laying to rest of Bi-Han's sins, instead of having the other two beat him up and let him live to be a disruption for Shinnok. This might require an M1K Sub-Zero alt to be added first so he can represent the decorrupted Bi-Han. The other option is to tie it into the main plot. It takes place prior to Chapter 1, with Kuai Liang still serving as a Lin Kuei member instead of Grand Master, hence the change in uniform and him not having his scar yet. The plot plays out basically the same, save for Baraka no longer rebelling against Shao Kahn because that comes later in the story, until Scorpion arrives. He doesn't learn the truth about his clan's destruction here, as he learns that in Chapter 1. The brothers defeat Quan Chi but are forced to retreat by Scorpion's return, making Bi-Han worry for his brother's safety. Bi-Han warns of Sector's ambitions and sends Kuai Liang home to restructure the Lin Kuei into a force to oppose Shinnok. Bi-Han remains in the Netherrealm to observe Quan Chi's movements and gather demons for the United Army. And then Quan Chi dispatches Scorpion to hunt the Turncoat Wraith down, as seen at the start of Chapter 1. Two separate takes on the same idea, one providing the much-deserved happy ending in another timeline, and one providing a brief reprieve from the usual conflict between the brothers, right before reminding the player where this all leads to. I mean, Onslaught understands that Sindel is supposed to be mind-controlled and not evil, so you'd hope it would understand Bi-Han better despite the overlap with M1K's writers. M1K Kenshi is only M1K Kenshi aesthetically. He's on a quest to kill all Shang Tsungs in the multiverse, despite M1K Kenshi having no real conflicts with him due to the entire House of Pakara backstory being replaced by Mileena stabbing his eyes out. But he makes no reference to this when he meets Mileena, nor about Baraka and Sindel's different circumstances. I know he's been at this for a while and could have gotten used to these differences, but I don't think that's good for storytelling. Clearly he has the traditional backstory. I'd have used an older design then, but I understand the desire for brand synergy. I think the premise is fine, but I'd make this incursion a bit more significant. It wouldn't be just a random timeline he goes to and then leaves without even a closing scene. Instead, this would revolve around two Shang Tsungs meeting and forming an alliance. One might be so bold as to call it an unholy alliance. And yes, this M1K Shang could well be the one from 2 Chronicles ago, giving us a side continuity instead of consequence-free standalones that amount to nothing. Kenshi, on his quest for revenge, discovers this alliance and cuts the 2 sorcerers down. He then turns his attention towards whatever device or artifact the foreign Shang used to come here, and decides to hunt other Shang Tsungs across the multiverse, setting this event as his origin story, instead of a random event that doesn't matter in the grand scheme of even his own life. This could even lay the groundwork for this Kenshi to arrive in the main Onslaught timeline later on, or future Chronicles that feature the Sorcerer as an antagonist, as he served that role thrice in a row by this point, twice as the main antagonist. Also, not story related, but given Kenshi's big gameplay focus on the spirit he can summon in M1K, I'd have thought that would be used in his gameplay here, having him be a support class who can summon the spirit to help the team in melee combat instead of a sniper class. Yes, the Blind Swordsman is a sniper, and the Sonya with the DBZ Scouter is a melee class, while her base version is the one that fights at range. I can't with this game sometimes. Klassic Kitana is a story that concerned me at the time. Kitana goes after Quan Chi to free her mother from mind control and succeeds, at the cost of Quan Chi getting Kitana's soul when she one day dies. I worried that this meant Sindel wouldn't get freed from mind control in the main story, or that they'd stick to MK11 and just have her be evil. I mean, why would they bother making a dedicated AU version of this plot if it was going to happen in the main Onslaught story as well? And ultimately, it didn't. She spent chapters 3 through 7 brainwashed to be loyal to Khan, 8 as a slave of the 2 sorcerers, and then the last 2 under Shinnok's power. And without any sort of epilogue, her fate remains unknown. But we can discuss that another time, back to the Chronicle. I think it would have been better to give this story not to Klassic Kitana, but to M1K Kitana. It's a Kitana who winds up in this timeline where her older sister is her evil clone, and where her mother has been brainwashed to serve Shao, who rules Outworld. Kitana can team up with her counterpart to save her mother, after a brief fight where Onslaught Kitana thinks her counterpart is Mileena, of course. Kitana shows compassion for Mileena and wants her to be given a second chance, which turns Onslaught Kitana against her, until Sindel steps in to calm her daughter. Mileena is given her second chance, and our Kitana departs with hope or ambiguity left in her wake. This same plot could go to M1K Sindel or Mileena and be basically unaltered. Go check out this video to see how the Sindel version might have played out. Peacemaker is a big missed opportunity. He arrives in the MK universe and is immediately manipulated by Scarlet to attack Johnny Cage and Kotal, allowing Scarlet to abduct Jade and steal some SF munitions. Johnny and Peacemaker team up to save Jade and destroy the munitions, and Peacemaker helps to save Kitana, who also happens to have been captured off screen at some point, before Sindel can execute her at the Deadpool, just like she tried to do to Jade in Klassic Kitana's finale. And then Peacemaker gets his kiss and the story ends. These stories really do very little with the concept of alternate timelines. Mine would be something very different. Peacemaker here is from M1K. After he cleans up that variant timeline, he sets off to try and get home, but ends up in a different kind of MK universe. Here, the special forces are corrupt, conscripting the Black Dragon into some sort of quitality squad. Peacemaker can relate to this, so he decides to help take down the evil SF and dismantle this horrific human rights violation. And yes, he can mention his previous SS teammates in Captain Boomerang, Reverse Flash, and Deadshot for obvious reasons. You'd give Reverse Flash a run for his money is a callback I can get behind. Classic Sonya sees Sonya dispatched to rescue Johnny Cage, who was sold by Kano to Sindel, for the arena, not that thing she said in Aftermath, and then sold him to Quan Chi, who wants to use him as a sleeper agent to destroy Earth's defences. Sonya beats the mind-controlled Johnny and then Quan Chi. It's all rather dull. The least they could have done is had Sonya be in a relationship with Johnny to add some drama to the proceedings instead of just having her be annoyed by him but having to follow orders anyway. My personal alteration would be to reverse the roles, like Johnny suggests in the story, funnily enough, and use this for M1K or Classic Johnny as a nod to one of MK's biggest influences. Kano abducts Sonya and Johnny goes after her. He learns that Shang Tsung is using Sonya and Kitana for some evil plot, leading to Johnny and Liu Kang teaming up, ideally with Raiden and Fujin doppelgangers thrown into the mix. And if it's too much, just reveal it's one of Johnny's movies. Hey Dom, if you're watching this, literally just steal this idea, it's golden. And finally, M1K Ashrah is the first non-classic chronicle to have the character not be from another timeline. It's just Ashrah fleeing the Netherrealm, teaming up with Jade, and then joining the Earthy Denia alliance against the Outworld Netherrealm alliance. Weirdly, the story sets up a much more interesting companion for her, Kitana. The two confront their former Dark Masters together, so why the hell isn't Ashrah working with Kitana more instead of Jade the whole time? My idea is instead a single long campaign against the Netherrealm. No Outworlders or Edenians, no side quests to fight the Shokan, just Ashrah turning good in a timeline where the Netherrealm is winning. Her ally here would be Nightwolf, since he's been known to have expertise in soul cleansing, and because his only story appearance thus far was him teaming up with Shao Kahn for one scene in the main plot. More like MK11 afterthought. The two battle Tanya still, but I'd also include Hellfire Scorpion and Revenant Kitana, who have yet to appear in any story material at all. They symbolise how bad things have gotten for the good guys by this point, with these guys turning bad. We also suggest more fallen heroes are on their way to excuse Nightwolf leaving Ashrah's side to buy her time to slay Quan Chi and defeat Shinnok. Maybe we throw in both noob Cybots and say both Sub-Zeros became them here to push the Dioness even further. Ashrah overthrows her former masters and earns her ascension, leaving her sword in hell for the next weary soul seeking redemption. And that's all the Chronicle stories so far. Hopefully we'll get more, even if there is no new main story content. My primary message here is that not every Onslaught timeline needs to be the same. Give us corrupt special forces, Melina Khan leading an army of Kitana clones, movie tributes, and multiverse stories featuring characters from more than just 2 universes. Really flex your creative muscles with these guys. If you liked this video, why not subscribe and support me on Patreon like these fine people here? If not, then make sure to share it with your enemies so they can suffer along with you. Today's recommended video is MK-K equals F, just the Fs, by 53XY83457, which is a cute little MK Mega Man sprite thing.